Ladies and gentlemen, the main dish of a bull market in cryptocurrency historically has been altcoin season. We've seen Ethereum, the altcoin market in general, even microcaps absolutely smash Bitcoin's performance out of the water in prior cycles. And it's been quite disappointing this far in this cycle because unfortunately, Bitcoin dominance has consistently been rising throughout the entire bull market for Bitcoin. We haven't seen the same level of altcoin performance, not even close really, to what we've seen previously in 2017 and also in 2021 in this cycle. But there's two things that people seem to forget about altcoin season. And honestly, I've been guilty of one of these things in the past occasionally. Have to remind myself often. First of all, it can run longer than you expect. Altcoin season does not need to end when Bitcoin tops out. In fact, historically, it hasn't ended when Bitcoin tops out. And the second thing is, it doesn't need much time at all to make quite a significant impact. So even though we haven't even seen the start of it yet this cycle, if we do see a trigger, it can be massive. We're going to look at Bitcoin in relation to the 4-year cycle, look at how much time we have left exactly, look at how altcoins have performed in relation to Bitcoin historically and whether or not they can run longer, and look at how long altcoin seasons generally last, but also focusing in more specifically on how long the bulk of the move lasts. Because you can see an altcoin season lasting a full year, but most of the gains come within a 2-month period, right? So we need to look into these questions to get a really clear idea of what this altcoin season, which potentially is coming up, might look like. A lot of people ask me what exchange I use as a trader. I use the Bitunix Exchange, and I don't have a contract with them. I haven't signed anything with them. I don't work for them. I advertise them on my own accord. With my referral link down below, you can get a 15% trading fee discount permanently attached to your account, as well as up to 8,000 USDT in rewards just by signing up with my link down below. Why would you sign up? Well, it's global, it's non-KYC, it's never been hacked before, it's got all of the functions and pairs that you would expect for a major exchange. For that reason, I use it. And I implore you to consider using it as well. Sign up with my link to help out the channel, help out yourself. Cheers. Now, I post polls in this YouTube channel every few days, and I find them highly insightful because it tells me what you guys are thinking on a generalized basis. Now, most of you guys, the majority of my audience, right, think that the Bitcoin market, the Bitcoin bull market, will top out in October to November as per the 4-year cycle, right? That's valid. That makes sense. The 4-year cycle date range trend on Bitcoin stemming from 6 separate micro trends and also trends in traditional markets like the presidential cycle theory extrapolated forward leads us to believe that Bitcoin will probably, not certainly, but probably be topping out around October, right? That's valid. That makes sense. Now, in another poll, I said, will we see an altcoin season this year? And again, most of you think we will. Most of you think we'll see an altcoin season this year. We've got about 74% of people saying, yes, we'll see an altcoin season. Most of you also think simultaneously it will be a bit smaller in scale than 2017 to 2021. But the point is, most of you are on board with the 4-year cycle, and most of you are on board with an altcoin season in some capacity. I agree with you guys completely. I think this 4-year cycle is certainly playing out. We have no evidence to believe so otherwise at this point. Now, again, if the evidence comes in, we can simply adjust our position. But at this point, 4-year cycle seems to be the name of the game. And therefore, we have about, let's say, 3.5 months left roughly until the Bitcoin top. I also believe that altcoins are primed for a move. I think that when Bitcoin finally decides to break out of its structural formation between these two yellow lines coming backwards from prior cycles, cyclically relevant lines, when Bitcoin finally decides to make that trigger, make that big move to the upside, the next move to the upside, I think altcoins will follow. And I can deduct this simply by looking at the momentum indicators. On the Ethereum chart, we've got Ethereum consolidating between two major zones, macro support and macro resistance in red and green. And we have Ethereum also, if the chart will load, having this momentum indicator resistance on the weekly chart, testing that level very concisely right now. Also, the Ethereum BTC chart, which perhaps is even more of a precise view to look at how altcoins are relating to Bitcoin. And I'll get to the point here in a moment. The Ethereum BTC chart, just like the regular Ethereum chart, within a pattern of formation there, within a pattern of consolidation, I should say, with the momentum indicator sharply compressing to a T. If we see that Bitcoin move to the upside, just like we've seen in the last couple of months with Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin on local moves, we should see Ethereum outperform Bitcoin on that move, and hence we should see Ethereum tick to the upside of momentum and tick to the upside on the Ethereum BTC chart, triggering some sort of altcoin season. I believe that quite firmly. And we can even go further, and I have gone further, and there's a reason why I'm skimming over this information because I've gone into it before, but we can even go further and look at the total 3. It's like, well, what is the total 3 doing? The total 3, first and foremost, is the altcoin market cap chart. And we've got an ascending channel formation there on the total 3, swinging to the bottom side of that channel formation with momentum indicator support, okay? And we should see a swing back to the upside right to the top of the channel, which leaves us for a massive move on the altcoin market. So I've skimmed through a lot of stuff there. I hope I didn't lose you in doing that. Basically, all I just said to clarify was when Bitcoin makes its push to the upside and breaks its current macro range, it stands to reason based on the charts that Ethereum, the altcoin market in general in relation to Bitcoin, should do the same. And we should see the beginning of some sort of altcoin bullishness in relation to Bitcoin, some sort of altcoin season. So I agree with you guys. I think the October/November top is looking likely, and I think that an altcoin season in some capacity is looking likely. I don't think it will be as strong as the price cycles, just due to the fact that we've got way less time than the price cycles. But here's when we get into the 2 major points of me making this video in the first place. First and foremost, it can run longer, right? So we have, as I said before, about 3.5 months left on Bitcoin. However, the altcoin market is not known to top out exactly with Bitcoin, right? A lot of people get mistaken on this, including myself in the past. They look at what happened in 2021. This is the Ethereum chart laid over the Bitcoin chart, by the way. Ethereum representing the leader of the altcoin market, and Bitcoin being Bitcoin. So whatever Ethereum does, altcoins do pretty much. That's how it generally works in crypto. Now we look back here in 2021 and we see that, yes, okay, Ethereum topped out with Bitcoin at the end of the year. And so a lot of people think, well, that means that altcoins just top out with Bitcoin in general, and therefore when Bitcoin tops out, altcoins will top out, and therefore you could say we have 3.5 months left into altcoins top. Not exactly true, right? We look back at the first top of 2021 and we see that altcoins actually continued running for an entire month without Bitcoin, while Bitcoin was seeing a sharp correction. Not even just a correction, a sharp correction from 65,000 all the way to 46,000. Guys, that's a correction of about 28%. While Bitcoin was 28% correcting, Ethereum continued upwards massively, right? Going all the way from about 2,200 to 4,200. It doubled in price while Bitcoin went downwards 30% and continued running for a month. We go back to 2018, we see a very similar story, right? What we see is that Bitcoin topped out, and then about a month later, Ethereum topped out. Bitcoin went downwards in that period of time, 40%, right? But Ethereum went upwards all the way from around 10,000 to close to 20,000. Oh, sorry, I'm misreading the numbers here. From about 500 to close to 1,300, more than doubling its price. So what does this show us? It shows us that actually in the prior 2 bull markets that we've seen, although in the second half of 2021, Ethereum did top out with Bitcoin, but in the first half of 2021, Bitcoin went downwards 30% while Ethereum doubled and continued running for a month. And in the bull run before that, Bitcoin went downwards 40% while Ethereum nearly tripled and went upwards for another month. So the first misconception that people have is, well, they think that Ethereum needs to top out with Bitcoin. Simply not true. In fact, the evidence suggests otherwise. The evidence suggests that Ethereum in the altcoin market will keep running for about a month and dramatically outperform Bitcoin. In fact, they'll see the bulk of their performance after the Bitcoin top. So we don't really have 3.5 months left for the altcoin market. It's more like we have 4.5 months left. And here's where we get into the second thing, the second misconception. And the second misconception is it doesn't need much time to run. Right? A lot of people think it does need a lot of time to run. The altcoin season needs a lot of time to play out. And that's because, historically speaking, altcoin seasons, if we're looking at the Bitcoin dominance chart, have taken around 300 days, about a year. Altcoin seasons have generally lasted about a year. Now, we don't have a year this time. We simply don't. If we're trusting the 4-year cycle, again, 3.5 months until the Bitcoin top, let's say 4.5 months until the altcoin top, that's way less than a year. That's a third of a year, right? We've got about a third of the amount of time we had in price cycles if the 4-year cycle remains. But it's important to note, the vast majority of the Bitcoin dominance drops, right, happen within a very short period of time. So, for example, 2017 was a bit more messy, a bit more phased, but in 2021, we saw Bitcoin dominance do the vast majority of its dropping in a 2-month period. Okay, and even in 2017, although it kind of dragged out a bit, we had these sharp, aggressive drops lasting a few weeks at a time, and then these consolidations. So we actually don't need that much time to make these dramatic moves, and that's even shown in what I showed you before, right? When Bitcoin went downwards 40% and Ethereum tripled in price action, That was the biggest clunk of the Ethereum price action for that cycle. In 2021, when Bitcoin went downwards 30% and Ethereum doubled, that was the biggest clunk of Ethereum price action in that cycle. So I think to wrap up this video, perhaps it's been a little bit hard to follow because I'm looking at so many charts and trying to do it at such a short period of time to keep it concise and as not to waste your time. But I want to conclude here and get it really clear so there's no misconceptions about what I've said. If we are trusting the 4-year cycle, and I think that's probably what we should be doing at this point given the data, what we should expect is basically this. Ethereum will probably top out in 3.5 months. Altcoins will probably top out in 4.5 months. And altcoins will probably see the vast majority, not the vast majority, but the bulk, I should say, of their good price action after the Bitcoin top, which is a very big misconception. People think, oh, Bitcoin's topped, therefore let's sell everything. Not necessarily the case. Altcoins don't need as much time to run as you may think, and they don't necessarily have to top out with Bitcoin. Now, I'm not saying that you should be holding altcoins blindly after the Bitcoin top. I'm saying let's reassess the situation and not sell them blindly. But before any of this can even come into play, we of course need to see Bitcoin lead the way and actually trigger to the upside. That hasn't happened yet. So I actually don't think that right now is a good buying opportunity for altcoins. I think that's extremely high risk. I would wait for the actual trigger to occur. Think of it this way. Bitcoin is going to lead the way. Altcoins will follow and eventually hopefully surpass. Hopefully that video was coherent. Guys, I think it was. I apologize if there was any confusion there. Just trying to get through the information quickly as not to waste your time as usual. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And guys, I really appreciate it if you checked out the Bitunix Exchange as well. A lot of people ask me what exchange I use as a trader. I use the Bitunix Exchange, and I don't have a contract with them. I haven't signed anything with them. I don't work for them. I advertise them on my own accord. With my referral link down below, you can get a 15% trading fee discount permanently attached to your account, as well as up to 8,000 USDT in rewards just by signing up with my link down below. Why would you sign up? Well, it's global. It's non-KYC. It's never been hacked before. It's got all of the functions and pairs that you would expect for a major exchange. For that reason, I use it. And I implore you to consider using it as well. Sign up with my link to help out the channel, help out yourself. Cheers.